If you want a little insight into Generation Z, is that we always are saying that we should be reading more. This is, of course, a generalization, but I don't have enough fingers for the number of times I've heard the phrase, oh, I should be reading more in probably the past month, including myself. So, TikTok, I feel like one of the first categories of TikTok that I heard about, since I'm not personally very active on it, was book talk, where what I assume are just TikToks about books, promoting books, creating books, and just books in general. So what did I do with that information was I made my next Notion template all about tracking professional and personal reading. Because there's nothing a young professional is struggling with more than how to spend their time being the best work version of themselves and then personal version of themselves, and how to do that day after day. I hope this template helps a little bit with that. As with all my templates, there's a free version and then a premium version. And for the first time, and for the foreseeable future, I'll have someone helping me create those templates and also be on this podcast episode. So let's get into it. Welcome back to Mindful Morsels, where we help young professionals do more with less. I am your host, Sam Lee, and I am a Notion ambassador. Notion is a productivity software for individuals, groups, organizations that basically helps you organize anything you want. And for the purposes of these episodes, I'm a Notion template creator where I put out a template on Notion's official marketplace every month. And for the first time, I have a co-host for these Notion templates and episodes. And with me, I have Ari. Ari, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. My name is Ari. I am a recent college grad like Sam, and I just recently started working as a tech consultant in Japan. Even though I'm far away, I'm happy to help Sam out.
Close in spirit, and Ari is always so helpful just in my life. So I'm very, very happy she's helping me with templates when she can. And yeah, this will be something we do every month just to talk about this month's template. And so for April, we're going to be reviewing our tracking professional and personal reading template. So like every template, there's going to be a free and premium version. With the free version, you just get the bare bones utility of what the template is trying to accomplish. But with the premium template, you get a lot of more features, and we're trying every month to make the gap wider and to see what else we could create with the premium version just to make it even more efficient, more capable of accomplishing that template's goal. So getting into the template journey, Ari, do you want to talk a bit about the quite short period we had for this template from ideation to creating it?
Yeah, sure. I think as a young professional and just like as a hobby, I really enjoy reading, and I'm sure that Sam does too. But
I do.
yeah, I haven't really gotten that much time into like reflecting what I've read or actually like making goals about reading. But I think that it is like a great idea that Sam had to kind of like keep track of what you've read and organize it into say like professional and personal goals, so that you can like set goals and you can actually reflect on what you read. So the both the free and premium template kind of have like the same theme of tracking these goals, and kind of like making a space for you to reflect on what you read.
Yeah, and this was the first time that we incorporated a template request or features request form where essentially we tried to find pockets of the internet that would care enough to take like this quick form that we created in Notion for features request for the premium version. So that included AI-powered book summaries, automated reading logs, visual charts showing your progress of reading quarter to quarter. And we got a couple of submissions, mainly from Reddit. So shout out to those Reddit users if they're listening. And it seems like across the board, people wanted all of the automated features that we were planning on creating. And we really appreciate getting that feedback, and we'll be continuing to make the form more helpful to people so they can feel like they're also getting input. And we now have a couple of emails to send this template out to, which should be sent based on when this podcast episode is released. So thank you again. And then we actually went into making both versions of this month's template. So as I share my screen, so people who are watching this episode can follow along. Ari, would you like to get into tracking professional and personal reading template free version, for lack of better wording there?
Yeah, sure. So the free version, or for both versions, you always want to start with the start here. So in the free version, you can see on the screen right now, you want to start with the left-hand side. So there is a quick add section right before the start here. And there is like a template that you can follow for each reading entry. So, if you click the reading entry template, then it'll show you the different parts that you need to fill out in the reading pipeline database. So for each entry, you can put the title, the author, and then category will generally be split into these 4 sections: work, skills, personal growth, and leisure. So you can put that into the category column of the pipeline. And you can also set the priority. So if it's like high, medium, or low. And then you can also set the status, which is not in the left-hand side, but if you are in progress, or if you have completed, or if you want to read it in the future but you have not yet. And some other things in the left-hand side are the format and time investment. So format, because there are different ways to kind of read or like digest a book now. That's why we have this. So it's either physical, digital, or audio. And then finally, for the time investment, and kind of keeping track of how much time you have put into a book. So if you want to set like reading speed goals or anything too, you can do that. So for just for this sake, we did less than 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours, and then 4+ hours. So that
Yeah,
is the general template.
And we wanted to make the template a little different from the table, just because we wanted to keep the table a bit simpler, but it's really easy to add any type of tracking you want. That's why it doesn't fully match up, because we didn't want to like do more than 5 columns
Yeah.
on one table. But of course, you could change it to your personal liking.
So that's the general template to follow. If we keep going down the left-hand side, next is the quick to-dos. So I guess you can do this before you add an entry. It doesn't really matter the order, but these are just some like general to-dos, like a checklist before, I guess, you start reading for the quarter. So first is to set just a quarterly reading goal. So you have that in mind and you can keep track of everything. Second is to schedule weekly reading blocks. I know for me, I will end up like watching shows if I don't set these blocks. So this is a great way to just keep you responsible for reading. So you can always like take note of this in the quick to-do section or anywhere else on the note. And then lastly is to review last month's takeaways. So, in the reading pipeline, you can always write notes about what you thought about the book and what you've learned. And based on those entries, you can always look back on it. So these 3 goals, once you're done, you can check them off if you want, just so you are keeping track of everything that you have done.
Yeah, and these are really malleable as well. Like, just by hitting enter, you can add more goals if you want, but they're meant to be quick and not necessarily permanent ones. Like, there's not a great place to track your goals. So if you want to do that, that is more on the premium side. But this is just for really quick to-dos, and once they are checked out, ideally you could delete and not need to reference later.
Yeah. Next is the rating stats. So this is just to keep the account of the total number of books you read, and then you can also divide it down to personal and professional books. So this is all you're gonna have to like add it up yourself. So after you read a book, just add 1 So you just update the number every time. You can just manually input it. If you do want like an automatic addition, then the premium version will have that function already embedded in for you. Okay, now just going into the actual databases that we have, which is the main part of this page. Again, we have the reading pipeline at the top, but then secondly, we have the two database like sub databases at the bottom, which is for the personal growth tracking and then professional growth tracking. For the personal growth tracking, we divided it into 3 skill areas: physical health, mental health, and social relationships. But again, as you see, you can always edit it if you want, if you have like different personal growth things that you want to add. But for each skill area, you can add the titles of related books, just so you keep in track of the number of books that you read, and you can, always go back to it. And then you can add notes on the rightmost column for each of the rows.
Awesome. So this is the free version. Ari, is there anything else you want to add?
No, so this is like a very, simple thing. You can edit it as much as you want. But again, if you do want more automation, I would highly recommend the premium version.
Yes. And as we get into that, this block will be at the bottom of all templates, but we have a very quick 1-minute feedback form to fill out if you feel inclined to do so. It's asking you simple questions about what you liked about the template, what changes would you suggest, and if you'd be willing to leave a testimonial. These really, really help make our templates better. So if you have a second, please do fill it out. Awesome. Now we'll move on to the premium version, and I can lead this walkthrough, and Ari, feel free to chime in as you see fit. But we really like the premium version so far, not just because it's like faster, smarter, whatever, but it's also because they're more fun to make, even though the basic version definitely is your meat and bones template, get everything done. The premium version is where the template comes alive, in my opinion, and we start with the most simple of automations, but instead of having to manually add things to your databases, we have these buttons here: add new reading entry and add a new quarter. So when you have a new reading entry you want to add, you simply click the button, and immediately not only does a new page in your reading pipeline database show up, but there is a template that is default put into your page for everything we just talked about. So title, author, category, etc. Not only that, but if you have Notion AI, even if you don't, you have some free credits, but if you have Notion AI, there will be an AI summary block, an AI key points block that automatically is populated once you start filling out the notes you have for your book. The other button is adding a new quarter. So the way that we decided to track our reading goals for this template was by quarter timeframes. So same thing with being able to just quickly click a button and then add a page with a pre-built template of goals, key takeaways, what could be improved this quarter, what could go well. And this really just simplifies the headspace needed to manually put in an entry, which can get quite tiresome after a while. And we think it will save people a lot of time. The quick to-dos we kept because, again, they're meant to be temporary and not meant to be tracked. And if you want to track your to-dos, you can do so more within the pipeline or the quarter. And again, that is the automated process. Ari, anything you want to add about the quick actions?
No, I just want to, like the reading entry, as long as you input it, it'll automatically be added to the pipeline and the other databases at the bottom. So it's very helpful.
Yes, yes. And going into the reading pipeline, which is the main database, we have a table view that shows an example book for the categories that we saw in the free version as well: physical health, mental health, social relationships, leadership, technical and soft skills. And we also have 2 more views. One is this, the books you're focusing on this month, because it can be probably a little overwhelming to see all your books. And you can switch these views around, so the default view becomes this month's view instead of all books. And we also start integrating charts. So this chart talks about the completed books based on the month. And as you can see, we're on track to complete a book a month, which is a very ambitious goal for some of us, but young professionals tend to be ambitious. And again, this can be easily played around to when you start a book, if you want to track by quarter or by years. And these are just expected completed dates. So, of course, like we have not gotten to May 2025 or July 2025. So, that's an important distinction. And then going into each entry, so you have the properties that are shown, including skill area, date started, expected date completed, and current page. And then we added a formula property for expected pages per day. And this calculates between your date started and expected date how many pages you should read per day based on the total amount of pages in order to hit your completed date goal. And for this book, On Muscle by Bonnie Sui, it's predicted that you should read 36 pages a day in order to complete your book by your start or by your completed date. And some hidden properties we have include what quarter this book is related to, which we'll get into the quarter database later, the total pages to calculate the formula, and also the reading status. And these are hidden because you don't necessarily need to see these when you open up a page, but that's just our opinion, and you can rearrange as needed. Ari, any additional thoughts on the pipeline database?
Yeah, I think like another like important aspect that we try to hit, which I've already mentioned before, is just reflection. So I really like how,
Mm,
in this template, you can actually like divide by like month, or you can see the past month by clicking at like this month's entries and just focus on what you've read for the month. So, at the end of the month, every time you can always look back at what you've read and kind of like remind yourself of the things that you have read for that month.
right, I agree. Like all these templates are malleable. So if you want to look at next month, you would just duplicate and change the filter to next month. These are all set up to be even more personable, but we just think this is a good start. And then I'll go down into the sub databases since they're related to the reading pipeline database next. So similar to the free version, we have our personal growth tracking and professional growth tracking. But instead of them just being static tables and quite simple layouts, we have organized these books based on their categories. So they are automatically populated into personal or professional. So you don't have to worry about, is this book personal or professional? Obviously, some books hit both, but we leave that for you to decide how you want to do it. It'll show up in both. And not only that, but we schedule it by progress. So you can see which books that you haven't started, which ones are in progress, and which ones are done. And we have the expected date completed shown just so you have a mental map of when ideally you should be done if you're ahead or behind of your goals.
No, looks great.
Great, killed that one. All right, and then the final section to look at is our quarters. So again, we just chose to record timeframes by quarters, maybe because as a young professional, everyone's probably quite clear about Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. But these quarter databases aggregate all the books that you are reading in that quarter. And again, they have a pre-built template for you to be able to reflect on that. Not only that, but these numbers here are the amount of books you read that quarter. So as Ariane mentioned, with the basic version, you would have to manually add it up. But with the premium version, it's a roll-up property that just automatically does it for you. So as you can see, for the purposes of this template, it's quite even and linear. So every quarter, you're expected to read 2 books, or you have read 2 books. And the final feature to show off here is another Notion chart that just is a very like aesthetic but effective way to show your book progress quarter to quarter. It's a line chart and it has your quarters on the x-axis and then the count on the y-axis. So 222 for, again, the sake of our template. Ari, any additional thoughts for the quarter databases?
Yeah, so like because each entry has a date, you can always like quickly like look at each of the databases and click on it if you like forget what, the main takeaway is. And then afterwards, at the end of each quarter, like you do for every month, you can always write what you thought were like the key takeaways for the quarter, just by like quickly looking at like the dates and the entries for those dates.
Exactly. And then of course the feedback form at the bottom if you have a second. But I really think that we did a good job with this one. And guys, this is the first time Aria has been able to help me out with the template as well. So I really appreciate her making this template a lot better. But I think there's a very clear distinction between the two. And that's not to say, as I think we've been implicitly say, that the basic version's bad or people shouldn't use it. Like, there are people who will find the basic version more helpful. But our goal between creating the basic version and the premium version is for people who want more of a system that will work more efficiently, will get deeper insights. For those people who are ready for that, we want to be able to have a template for them as well, especially since reading in and of itself can feel sometimes daunting to start, to track, to do anything with. And I'm getting ahead of myself for our conversation about just life around tracking professional personal reading. But let's just get into it then. So, Ari, why, in your opinion, does reading both professionally and personally and tracking it matter to you?
So I'll go with, I guess, my personal reading first. So for this, I guess like I got more into like reading over the past year. As I mentioned a little bit in the introduction, I was kind of like just like speed reading everything and I wasn't really reflecting on stuff. But I think like, at least for personal reading, I read a lot of fiction books and or like historical fiction, and every book has like a certain theme that it touches on. And I think that, it's really great, like if you can keep track of it and kind of like look back at what like your thoughts were. It's kind of like a journal entry for each book. And I think that can really like read to personal growth, just because you have time to reflect and, you have time to learn, more time to learn from
Yeah.
those books.
Yeah, I
As
agree.
yeah.
Sorry, keep going, keep going.
Oh, sorry. As for
Okay.
professional growth, I just like started my professional career, so I can't really say much. But as like someone in, I guess, more in the consulting field, there is so much to learn every day. So, as I get more into work, I'm sure that I'll read a lot more in my downtime as well. And it's more important in work because I have to remember what I like read, and I can like actually use it, whether it's like for like clients or just like talking to other people at my office in general. So like always learning new stuff and keeping notes of it will definitely be helpful for me as I start my career and like kind of to it.
Yeah, I definitely agree on those points. I feel like personal reading, it feels like lower stakes in a sense, but also important because if you're only consuming information at work, you don't have a good source of information outside of work, which is important. And I think for professional reading, it is more important on the surface to track because like you said you probably need to like show that you know what you read and in a way it's like school but in a more actionable way. I feel like in work it comes across when you're able to be like well read, and I feel like people are just constantly recommending books, like doesn't matter where they are in like the hierarchy or if they're in your organization or not, like there's always a book that's coming out. Or like in my line of work, I feel like we interview an author like every other episode of the podcast. So I think it's important to not only be able to read well, but to, I think for me, it's grown more important to like at least have the itch to track it somewhere, and Notion has become that place for me. So yeah, I think for different reasons, for personal it might be lower stakes, but probably more important to like having your own thoughts outside of work. And then for professional reading, it's probably more about being able to do well in your job. Both are important, and that's why I want to create templates that address like almost two things at once. That's what I was trying to achieve with my job seeking as a student template, because you're never just doing like one thing. I feel like you're always doing multiple things, and you shouldn't do too many things at once. But I think doing two things at once I just used the word like two in two different ways, or two different words that both sound like two. That's the correct way. So TOO, you shouldn't do too many things. TWO, you can do two things. I hope I didn't lose anybody on that. Let's move on to the next topic of discussion. I promise, guys, we're almost done here. But the second out of three topics, the second one, how all of our smart features enhances the reading experience. We have already talked about the premium versions, the AI book summaries, the formulas, the button automations, but do you have any more thoughts on if somebody just came up to you and was like, why do I need the premium version? If they're more on the fence between the two, what would you say in like your least sales pitchy way?
I would say, like with the free version, I think just talking about myself, I would definitely forget to update like every single part of the template. Like I'll be like maybe like, like looking at like the like entry and then just putting that in the pipeline. And then
Yeah.
like, I'll go on with my day without like, considering like updating like the numbers for like the other parts or putting it like each entry into both like the personal database and the professional books database. So for me, I really like things that save time. And just like I like looking at visually pleasing things. So I think that is the big differentiator between the free and the premium version for me.
Yeah, I too would forget. Let me just join you in that camp. And I have a more shallow reason, I would say, but I have been using Notion for a long time now, a couple of years, and I've been able to do really great things as an ambassador. I'm building like a DC community. So I get a lot of questions about like, why do you keep using Notion? And the most consistent way, guys, that I use Notion, so I have this one database, no, like singular database called Life Tasks database, and everything kind of flows from there. Like I make different views and put them wherever I want. But I routinely use my Notion. It's a little different now that we're finally formalizing the template process. But all I do is I click one button that adds one entry to my life tasks database every day. And I'm literally just asking myself every day, like, how can I do the most amount of good? And it's just like my thoughts every day. And obviously, like, I use Notion in other ways, but it's really just the buttons, guys. Like, I think when Notion introduced the buttons automation, it made it more aesthetically pleasing, yes, but it almost just felt friendlier. I know we're in this weird stage of like humanizing tech with AI and stuff, but disregarding that for a second, like there's something about clicking a button and having to do like XYZ, like the template is put in, it shows up on SidePeak, it doesn't like disrupt, you're not like switching between tabs on, name your tech company. I think for me, that defines like a really key part of Notion where it's simple but effective. Like software should be beautiful is the company's motto or slogan. And yeah, I love that we built like the charts and everything, but it's such a simple reason for me where like the button just leads to like the templates where you can see the formula and the charts are starting to be filled up. So it's just the fact that I'm basically building off of Aries' point, but the fact that you can press one thing and have like five things happen for you versus with the basic version, it's more so just so you can like get a feel for it, which is important. But if people are on the fence, the biggest thing is that the template starts working for you instead of you working for the template. Last conversation point, I need to find a better name. This is like a fun series after like the template walkthrough, and we'll work on that. We'll come up with like a fun, like, I don't know, thought for your thoughts to steal from Parks and Rec, something like that. Real world application for young professionals. We target young professionals. We don't target just anybody. So why, as you mentioned, like you're just starting your job. I've been in it for a few months, but we're both young professionals and we will be for a couple more years. So like why should young professionals specifically use either of these templates?
Yeah. So I guess I'll kind of like add more into the answer that I said for like, why the reading template. I feel like as a young professional, there is so much to learn right now. And, even though we are both like college grads, there's so much to learn outside of like our undergraduate classes. So I think that as I start my career and, Sam has like already gotten a few months into it, it's really important to just keep learning and kind of like try to gather like more information like while we can, because I'm sure that I have more time right now than I will have in a few years as I go step up into like more like managerial parts. So I think right now is a great opportunity to just try to learn as much as you can, read a wide variety of books, so that in the future, if someone like asks a question or if someone asks, to work in a different industry, then you'll be ready for it.
Yeah, totally agree again. I think that learning after school is more of your choice, which is a good thing. But also, learning after school is your choice. Like, it also can be hard. It's both sides of the coin. And I think that young professionals, especially as Ari mentioned, like, we have time and we don't. And the time that we do have should definitely be mostly spent towards, like, learning. And you can't just keep learning through the spreadsheets you're working on, or like the coding you're doing, or the thinking and reading you're doing. Like any area of your work, like you will have reading that you should do both during work and outside. And this is of course like at everybody's limited bandwidth, like choose your own time period of like what is feasible. But that's the point of this template. Like this template is meant to match wherever you are, energy wise, time wise, resource wise. If you have 5 minutes at the end of a really long workday, even just tracking if you read like a page that day, that is a win. Like a win is a win when you're a young professional or any stage of your life. But I think there's something that reading has that just kind of feels very young professional. Like I feel like I'm always hearing like, oh, I should read more, or New Year's resolution, even though we all know New Year's resolutions are like, again, your choice. And if you actually follow through, it's a different story. But that's what I hear a lot. And we're going to keep building out this process where we get more like concrete demand for certain templates and certain topics for young professionals. But I chose this one because this is just like anecdote. I'm sure Ari has also heard people say like, I should read more. We both have felt that way, I'm sure, at points. So it's kind of a hot topic, guys. I know like there's a lot going on in the world, but I really think that reading and books is something that will be a constant for a while. It has been for a long time, ever since humanity started becoming what it was. So I think we'll close out with just letting people know the template is live. Go to notion.so/@SamHLee, and we'll of course include that link in the show description. But go try the free version, the basic version, if you still want to see it for yourself. If you feel ready for the premium version, I'm sure we'll do some sort of discount that I'll need to figure out later for a brief period of time. So you'll be able to get the Notion template probably at least like 50% off. That's what I would aim for. And for May's template, May 2025, there's only one word that I'm thinking about right now, and it's budgeting. And if there's anything that is more directly related to how much you could be reading, especially in your personal time, it is your budgeting and how much you will be spending. So that is going to be our next topic, something again very relevant to all different age groups, but again, young professionals uniquely. Ari, any last words before we close out here?
Not really. Again, we highly recommend reading. As we put in the template, it doesn't have to be like reading words. If you want to go outside or like go walking and just like listen to an audiobook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can, do anything with reading.
Inspiring words for this template. Very inspiring words. Thanks so much for watching this episode covering our April 2025 Notion template, tracking professional and personal reading. If you like this episode, please leave us a rating or review wherever you're listening to this, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Substack, anywhere else. And look forward to the next templates that we're creating as well. I am excited for the budgeting template. That will be our next template. And also for more of these episodes to come. All the important links to the templates, resources will be in the show description. So make sure to check it out. And until next time, we'll see you then. Take care.